My name is Sophia Langford. I'm 33. Last Tuesday at 6:47 p.m., I was standing in my parents' living room in Wellesley while my mother looked me in the eyes and told 180 guests at my brother's engagement party invitation list that I play at business while Noah actually contributes to the family legacy. The temperature in that room was 72 degrees. I know because I stared at the thermostat for 11 seconds while she said it, counting my heartbeats, watching my father nod in agreement beside her. My private equity firm manages $523 million in assets. My father's hedge fund manages $380 million. The difference is $143 million. They've never asked me a single question about my work. Sophia does some consulting thing, my mother said to the calligrapher who was addressing the engagement invitations in gold script. Real estate forms or something. Noah, on the other hand, is a senior analyst at Goldman Sachs. Richard and I are so proud. I was standing right there, 3 feet away, holding a cup of coffee that had gone cold in my hands. Mom, I said quietly, I run a private equity firm, Horizon Capital Partners. We closed an $18 million warehouse acquisition in South Boston last month. She didn't even look at me. That's nice, dear. Noah, did you decide on the salmon or the beef for the reception? Before I go on, if stories about standing up for yourself mean something to you, please hit like and subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from right now and what time is it there. Let me take you back 8 years to when this all started. I was 25, fresh out of Wharton with my MBA, top of my class. I just accepted an analyst position at Morgan Stanley. My parents threw a dinner party, 43 people, caterers, a banner that said, "Congratulations, Sophia." My grandmother Rose held my hand under the table and whispered, "You're going to build something extraordinary. Don't let anyone make you small." She died 4 months later. Heart attack at 73, no warning. At her memorial service, my mother cried beautifully into a silk handkerchief. My father gave a speech about family values. I stood in the back row and realized I was the only one who remembered that Grandma Rose had been a bookkeeper who'd put herself through night school in 1965 when women weren't supposed to want careers. She'd kept ledgers in her basement until she was 70. Perfect handwriting, every number balanced. The first betrayal happened 3 months after that. I'd been promoted to associate at Morgan Stanley. I was working 80-hour weeks, building a track record, saving every dollar. I came home for Thanksgiving. 27 relatives packed into my parents' house in Wellesley. My father stood at the head of the table and announced that Noah had been accepted into the Goldman Sachs Summer Analyst program. Noah was 23, still an undergrad. It was an internship. My father raised his glass. To Noah, the future of the Langford financial legacy. Everyone drank. Everyone cheered. I waited. Surely someone would mention my promotion. My mother knew. I'd called her 2 weeks earlier. Nothing. After dinner, I found my mother in the kitchen. "Mom, did you get my message about the promotion?" She was rinsing wine glasses. "Oh, yes. That's wonderful, honey. Very nice." "I'm the youngest associate in my division." "Mm-hmm." She didn't look up. "Can you take the trash out? Noah shouldn't have to do it on his special day." My face burned so hot I could feel my pulse in my teeth. I took the trash out. I drove back to Boston at 11 p.m. and cried in my studio apartment for 20 minutes. Then I opened my laptop and got back to work. Over the next 2 years, the pattern calcified. Noah got his first full-time offer at Goldman. Family dinner, champagne, my father's college roommate flew in from Chicago. I closed my first major deal of $4, $2 million medical office building in Cambridge. My mother sent a text that said, "Congratulations, honey, proud of you," with no period at the end. I stopped expecting anything. I worked harder. 80-hour weeks became 90. I saved $47,000 in my first year, $83,000 in my second. I didn't buy new clothes. I didn't take vacations. I ate breakfast sandwiches at my desk and reviewed acquisition models until 2 a.m. My colleagues started calling me the machine. In 2021, at 29, I founded Horizon Capital Partners. Private equity focused on sustainable real estate. I raised $180 million from institutional investors in the first 18 months. Our internal rate of return was 23%. I hired 12 people. I got quoted in the Wall Street Journal. My mother's response when I told her, "That sounds risky, sweetheart. Are you sure you shouldn't just stay at Morgan Stanley? Stable income is important for women." I was making $340,000 a year. Morgan Stanley had offered me $195,000 to stay. "It's not risky, Mom. We have institutional backing. I've got a board seat at—" "Well, I'm sure you know what you're doing," she said, in the tone people use when they're certain you don't. "Noah was just promoted to VP. Did he tell you?" He'd texted me about it. I'd sent back a thumbs up emoji. "I have to go," I said. "Conference call." There was no conference call. I sat in my office and looked at the Boston skyline and wondered what I would have to achieve for them to see me. The answer, I would learn, was that there was no number high enough. The public humiliation happened on a Wednesday in March. I was meeting with a developer at Flower Bakery on Clarendon Street. We were finalizing terms on a $22 million mixed-use property in Somerville. 4 stories, 62 residential units, ground floor retail. It was the biggest deal of my career so far. My mother walked in at 2:14 p.m. I didn't see her at first. I was reviewing a red-lined contract with Michael Torres, the developer. He was explaining zoning variance issues. Then I heard her voice. "Sophia, is that you?" She was with 3 women I recognized from her garden club. All of them were carrying shopping bags from Newbury Street. "Hi, Mom." I stood up. "This is Michael Torres. We're just finishing a meeting." "Oh, how lovely." She air-kissed my cheek. "Are you doing some consulting work?" My throat went dry. "No, we're closing an acquisition, the property I told you about in Somerville." She smiled at her friends. "Sophia likes to keep busy with little real estate projects. It's very sweet. I keep telling her she should find a nice position at a firm, something with benefits, but she insists on this independent thing." One of the women, Janet, I think, looked confused. "Oh, I thought, doesn't Sophia run a company?" "She does some consulting," my mother said, laughing lightly. "Helps people find properties, that sort of thing. It's not quite the same as what Richard does, of course. His fund manages real money, but we're proud of her for staying busy." I felt Michael stiffen beside me. I knew what he was thinking. We'd been negotiating for 3 months. He'd done his research. He knew exactly who I was, what Horizon Capital Partners managed, our track record, our investor profile. "Mrs. Langford," Michael said carefully, "Sophia's firm manages over $500 million in assets. She's one of the most—" "Oh, that's very kind of you to say," my mother interrupted. "Sophia's always had such nice friends. We really should go, girls. Tea reservation at 3:30. She kissed my cheek again, left a lipstick mark. Her perfume was Chanel No. 5, the same scent she'd worn my entire life. After they left, Michael sat back down slowly. "I'm sorry," he said. "That was—" "It's fine." My voice was steady. Something inside me had clicked shut. Where were we? We finished the contract. I signed documents with hands that didn't shake. I smiled. I thanked him. I walked back to my office and sat at my desk for 40 minutes without moving. Then I called my father. I don't know why. Some pathetic hope that he would defend me, that he would understand. "Dad, Mom just told people I do consulting. In front of a developer I'm closing a $22 million deal with." "Well, honey, your mother doesn't understand business. You know that." "Then explain it to her. Tell her what I actually do." He sighed. "Sophia, why do you always need so much validation? Noah doesn't call me every time someone doesn't understand his job." "Noah's job is on his LinkedIn profile and yours looks identical. Mine—" "I'm proud of you," he said, in the voice people use when they're ending conversations. but I'm in a meeting. We'll talk later. We didn't talk later. 2 weeks after that, I got a call from David Chen, the managing partner at Cornerstone Advisors. We'd met at a Wharton alumni event. He was in his 60s, semi-retired, served on 8 boards. Sophia, I'm putting together a panel for the Boston Real Estate Conference in June. I'd like you to speak. The Future of Sustainable Development. 45 minutes, followed by Q&A. I accepted. It was a major opportunity. 300 attendees, mostly institutional investors and developers. The kind of visibility that could unlock the next $200 million in funding. I called my mother that night. Mom, I'm speaking at the Boston Real Estate Conference. It's at the Fairmont Copley, June 15th at 2 p.m. I'd love for you and Dad to come. Oh, honey, that's the same weekend as Noah's company golf tournament. We're all going to support him. He's playing with the CEO. It's a Thursday afternoon. The golf tournament is Saturday. Well, we want to be there for the whole weekend. Family support is important. My hands were shaking. I set the phone down on my kitchen counter and stared at it. Mom, I said slowly, I have never asked you for anything. I have never asked you to come to an office party or a closing dinner or a board meeting. This is 1 hour, one Thursday afternoon. Please. Silence. Then, Sophia, why are you being so dramatic? It's just a panel. You'll do wonderfully without us. We've always encouraged your independence. I hung up. I didn't cry. I called David Chen back and confirmed the panel. Then I called my assistant and told her to book me 3 additional speaking engagements before the end of the year. If my parents wouldn't see me, the industry would. The conference happened. I spoke about sustainable real estate development, vertical integration, ESG compliance requirements. The Q&A went 20 minutes over because people wouldn't stop asking questions. Afterward, 7 investors asked for my card. 3 scheduled follow-up calls that week. My parents sent a text. Hope your talk went well. No questions. No, what did you speak about? No, how did it go? I was done hoping. In September, Noah got engaged. Her name was Margot Chen, no relation to David. She was 28, worked in marketing at a pharmaceutical company, came from a family with a house in Nantucket. My mother called me at 7:03 a.m. on a Sunday to tell me. They're getting married next June, at the country club in Brookline. Isn't that wonderful? That's great, Mom. Congratulations. We're throwing an engagement party in November, the Saturday before Thanksgiving. You'll come, won't you? Of course. Perfect. Wear something nice. Not work clothes, a dress. I wanted to ask what she thought I wore to work. A hazmat suit? A prison jumpsuit? Instead, I said, Sure, Mom. The invitation arrived 3 weeks later. Cream cardstock, gold embossing, calligraphy. Mr. and Mrs. Richard Langford request the pleasure of your company at an engagement celebration honoring Noah Langford and Margot Chen. Saturday, November 18th, 6 p.m. The Country Club, Brookline. 180 guests. I knew because my mother mentioned it every time I called. We invited 180 people, Sophia. Can you believe it? The ballroom holds 200, but we wanted it to feel intimate. I bought a navy dress. Simple, elegant, expensive. I got my hair done. I practiced smiling in the mirror. The party was perfect. White orchids on every table. A string quartet. Waiters in white jackets carrying trays of champagne and bacon-wrapped scallops. Everyone who mattered in Boston finance was there. My father's college roommates, Noah's colleagues from Goldman, family friends I'd known since childhood. I arrived at 6:12 p.m. My mother was standing near the entrance in a silver gown, greeting guests. She saw me and waved. Sophia, you made it. You look lovely. Did you come alone? Yes. Well, maybe you'll meet someone tonight. There are several eligible young men here. Noah's college roommate is single, I think. I was 33 years old. I'd been on 3 dates in the past year because I worked 70-hour weeks building a company. I didn't need my mother's matchmaking. I'm fine, Mom. Where should I sit? Oh, anywhere. Mingle. This is a party. I found a seat at table 14, far from the head table where Noah and Margot sat with my parents. I recognized two of the other people at my table, distant cousins I'd seen at weddings. They asked what I did. I said I worked in real estate. They nodded and changed the subject. At 7:30 p.m., my father stood up to give a toast. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight to celebrate Noah and Margot. As many of you know, Noah has always been exceptional. Straight A's in school, varsity tennis, accepted to Yale. And now, at just 29, he's a vice president at Goldman Sachs, following in the footsteps of our family's financial legacy. Everyone applauded. Noah grinned. Margot squeezed his hand. My father continued, I've always said that my greatest accomplishment isn't my hedge fund, or my investments, or my board seats. It's my son. Noah is everything I hope to build, smart, ambitious, principled. He represents the best of what the Langford name means. More applause. I kept my face neutral, took a sip of water. Noah, my father said, his voice catching slightly, you are my pride, my legacy, the future of everything our family has worked for. I couldn't be more proud of the man you've become. He raised his glass. 180 people stood. I stood too. I drank champagne that tasted like metal. My mother spoke next. Noah has always been my joy, she said, smiling through tears. From the moment he was born, I knew he was destined for greatness. And Margot, you're the daughter I always wanted. I felt my cousin Emily glance at me. I didn't look back. The toasts ended. Dinner was served. Filet mignon, roasted vegetables, risotto. I ate mechanically, smiled when required, answered questions about work with vague responses that wouldn't trigger follow-up questions. At 8:47 p.m., Margot's father stood to speak. Daniel Chen, surgeon, hospital board member, owned a vineyard in California. He was gracious, funny, warm. He told a story about Margot's childhood, about Noah's first visit to their house, about the moment he knew Noah was the right man for his daughter. Then he said something that changed everything. I did my research, of course. What father wouldn't? I Googled Noah. I looked at his LinkedIn. I asked around. And everyone said the same thing. Great guy, smart, hardworking, comes from good people. But you know what really impressed me? He paused, smiled. His sister. I froze. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. I'm in healthcare, so I don't know much about finance, but I know a little about real estate because of our property investments. So when I saw that Noah's sister runs Horizon Capital Partners, I thought, wait, that's Sophia Langford? He looked directly at me. I couldn't breathe. I called a colleague who invests in real estate development. I said, do you know Horizon Capital Partners? He said, know them. They're one of the best PE firms in sustainable development in the Northeast. Sophia Langford is brilliant. 23% IRR, impeccable deal selection, raised $180 million in 18 months. The table had gone quiet. People were turning to look at me. Daniel Chen continued. So I thought, if Noah comes from a family that produced someone like Sophia Langford, he must be extraordinary. The Langford name clearly means excellence. He raised his glass. To Noah and Margot, and to the Langford family, all of them who set such a high bar. People clapped. But the sound was different now. Uncertain. Confused. I could see guests at nearby tables whispering, pulling out phones. Someone 2 tables over had their phone out, clearly Googling my name. My mother's face had gone pale. My father was staring at Daniel Chen like he'd started speaking a foreign language. Noah looked at me. Really looked at me, maybe for the first time in years. His expression was complicated. Surprise, confusion, something that might have been guilt. Margot leaned over and whispered something to Noah. he whispered back. Then Margot stood up. I'm sorry, she said, addressing the room but looking at my parents. I assumed everyone knew about Sophia's company. Horizon Capital Partners manages over $500 million in assets. She's been quoted in the Wall Street Journal, Forbes, Bloomberg. She spoke at the Boston Real Estate Conference last June. The keynote was basically about her development philosophy. 180 people were silent. And 80. My mother found her voice. Well, yes, Sophia does very well with her real estate consulting. It's not consulting, Margot said gently. It's private equity. She's a founder and CEO. Someone at table 6 held up their phone. I'm looking at her LinkedIn right now. Wharton MBA, Morgan Stanley, founded Horizon in 2021. Current AUM $523 million. Another voice. Wait, $523 million? Richard, doesn't your fund manage around $400 million? My father's jaw clenched. $380 million, he said quietly. The math hung in the air. The difference. $143 million. A woman I didn't recognize, one of my mother's garden club friends, said, Elizabeth, you told us Sophia did some consulting on the side. You said she helped people find apartments. My mother's face was burning. I didn't. She never explained. I explained, I said. My voice cut through the room, not loud, not angry, just factual. I've explained dozens of times. You chose not to listen. I stood up. Every eye in the ballroom was on me. I'm not here to make a scene, I said. This is Noah's night. Congratulations, Noah. Margot, you're lovely. I wish you both every happiness. I picked up my purse. My father stood. Sophia, wait. Why? I looked at him. So you can tell me I'm being dramatic? So Mom can explain that she just didn't understand? I've worked 80-hour weeks for 8 years. I've built something from nothing. I've raised $180 million. I've closed $127 million in acquisitions. I've spoken at conferences, been quoted in national publications, earned board seats at 3 major firms, and you've never once asked me a single question about my work. My voice didn't shake. I'd practiced this speech in my head 1,000 times, never thinking I'd actually give it. I don't need your approval anymore, I said. I stopped needing it 2 years ago. But you should know, the Langford legacy. I'm building it, right now, without you. I walked toward the exit. The crowd parted. No one spoke. Behind me, I heard my mother say, She's always been so sensitive. I heard Noah say sharply, Mom, stop. I heard my father say nothing. I drove home to my apartment in the seaport, 14 minutes. I didn't cry. I sat on my couch and looked at the Boston skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. My phone started buzzing at 9:34 p.m. Text messages, voicemails, emails. Noah. Soph, I'm so sorry. I didn't know they were doing that. Can we talk? My father. That was inappropriate. We need to discuss this as a family. My mother. You embarrassed us in front of 180 people. How could you? David Chen, the managing partner who'd invited me to speak at the conference. Just heard what happened from Daniel. We're old med school friends. You handled that with grace. Lunch next week? I want to talk about board opportunities. 3 colleagues from Morgan Stanley, 2 developers I'd worked with, a journalist from the Boston Globe who'd covered one of my acquisitions. I turned my phone off. 3 days later, Noah showed up at my office. My assistant tried to stop him, but I waved her off. 5 minutes, I said. He sat down. He looked tired. Margot made me Google you. I read everything. WSJ articles, your company website, your conference panels. Soph, I had no idea. You never asked? I know. He rubbed his face. I'm not going to make excuses. I was so focused on competing with Dad, on proving myself, I didn't see you. None of you did. Mom and Dad are upset. They think you made them look bad. I laughed. It came out bitter. I made them look bad? I know, I told them that. I told them they owed you an apology. Dad said you were disrespectful. Mom said you've always been jealous of me. Something in my chest cracked. Jealous, I repeated. Soph, Noah, I'm not jealous of you. I've never been jealous of you. I've been invisible. There's a difference. He was quiet for a long moment. What do you want me to do? Nothing. This isn't your job to fix. You didn't break it. They're my parents too. Then tell them the truth. Tell them what you learned when you Googled me. Tell them that their daughter built something bigger than Dad's fund. Tell them that I did it without their support, without their approval, without their acknowledgement. And tell them that I don't need them anymore. Noah left. I didn't hear from my parents for 6 weeks. When I did, it was an email from my mother. Subject line, Thanksgiving plans. Dear Sophia, we're hosting Thanksgiving as usual. 2 p.m. Please bring a dessert. Love, Mom. No apology, no acknowledgement, just an expectation that I would show up, bring pie, smile for photos. I didn't respond. On Thanksgiving, I had dinner with my team at my apartment. 12 people. We ordered Chinese food and watched football and talked about our Q4 deals. My associate director, Rebecca, brought her kids. They were 7 and 9. They asked me what I did for work. I help build buildings, I said. Big ones where people live and work. That's cool, the 7-year-old said. Like Legos? Exactly like Legos, but more expensive. They laughed. Rebecca smiled at me. Later, while the kids watched TV, she said, I saw the LinkedIn posts about the engagement party. Are you okay? I'm better than okay, I said. And I meant it. 6 months later, Horizon Capital Partners closed a $47 million mixed-use development in Cambridge. 8 stories, 120 residential units, ground floor retail, rooftop gardens. It was featured in Architectural Digest and the Boston Globe. The Globe article mentioned my Wharton background, my Morgan Stanley track record, my company's growth trajectory. My mother sent a text. Saw the article. Very nice photo of you. That was it. That was all. I didn't reply. Noah got married in June. I didn't attend. I sent a gift, a first edition of The Intelligent Investor that had belonged to Grandma Rose. Inside I wrote, To Noah and Margot, may you build something worth keeping. With love, Sophia. Noah called me 3 times. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. I understand why you didn't come. I'm sorry. For all of it. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. Maybe someday I would. But not yet. In September, I got a letter from my father's attorney. My parents were updating their estate plan. They wanted to discuss my role in the family legacy. I sent it back unopened with a note. I'm building my own legacy. Thank you. 2 weeks ago, I was walking through the seaport and passed a newsstand. The cover of Boston Magazine, 30 under 40, Boston's rising business leaders. My photo was on the cover. Inside, a 3-page spread about Horizon Capital Partners, our sustainable development model, our returns, our growth. I bought 5 copies. Sent one to David Chen with a thank you note for the conference invitation that had started everything. Sent one to Rebecca. Sent one to Michael Torres, the developer my mother had embarrassed me in front of. Kept 2 for myself. I didn't send one to my parents. If you're watching this and you've ever had to build something extraordinary just to be seen as ordinary, type, I built it anyway, in the comments. Or if you're still waiting for someone to see you, type, still building. Both are valid. Both are brave. This isn't a story about revenge, it's a story about the cost of being invisible, and the freedom that comes when you stop asking for permission to exist. I'm 33 years old. I run a company worth $523 million. I employ 47 people. I've created housing for 832 families. I've been quoted in the Wall Street Journal, Forbes, Bloomberg, and the Boston Globe. And my parents still introduce me as their daughter, who does some real estate consulting. The difference now is that I don't correct them anymore. I don't need to. The buildings I've built speak louder than their silence ever could. I stood in front of Grandma Rose's grave last week, brought her flowers, white roses, her favorite. You were right, I told her. I built something extraordinary, and I didn't let anyone make me small. The wind picked up, leaves scattered across the cemetery. Somewhere in the distance, I could hear the sound of construction, pile drivers, cement mixers, the symphony of things being built. I walked back to my car. The sun was setting over Boston, painting the skyline gold. I had a board meeting in the morning, a site visit in the afternoon, a conference call with investors at 4 p.m. I had work to do, buildings to build, a legacy to create, and I was doing it all on my own terms.